Welcome back to the Chōten Show, where we sit down with the founders, leaders, and innovators shaping the future of communication, business, and human performance. Today, I'm honored to be joined by Dr. Dennis Becker, CEO of the Speech Improvement Company. It's one of the oldest communication coaching firms in the US, and it's been trusted by Fortune 500 companies, executives, world leaders, entrepreneurs, you name it. Dennis, thank you so much for joining. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for inviting me. And I think actually we are the oldest company of our kind in the United States, maybe in the world, but certainly in the United States,
Amazing.
before we started.
Awesome. So you've been doing this for 60 years now, almost, right? Yeah, 60 years now. So, tell us about that. How did you start way back when, and what's different about it now? But actually, let's start with how'd you get started with?
Well, it wasn't easy to begin with. I don't know how far back to go, but let's go back to where it actually started, which was in college. My wife and I were in the same school. She was studying speech pathology, and I was studying something called speech education and broadcasting. And we kind of hit it off on Halloween night of the very first freshman year, and we hit it off, and boom, 52 years later, we're still doing business. Now, my wife died in 2012. So it's been 13 years since she passed away, but we had 52 years of building the company together. Okay. So when we decided we wanted to work together, we said, nobody's going to teach you. They're not going to pay you how to teach them how to talk. We all know how to talk. That's not going to work. So they gave us 6 months, a year, but we knew we had no other competitors. We had nobody to copy. The only other things in the world at that time were Dale Carnegie, which is somewhat considerably different than what we want to do, and something in the UK called Toastmasters International. Again, different. So we thought we could do it. And so we just tried to put it together, put our thoughts together, and it was a struggle for a while. But here we are 61 years later. So it obviously took, and now it's an industry. Anybody who can talk thinks they can teach other people to talk. So it's quite a bit different now than it was when we first started.
Yeah. So, with that being said, being the oldest one in the game, being the first to get there, and how much it's changed since then, what sort of lessons or reasons have you seen that speech is so important throughout that entire time period?
Well, when you think about speech, we can take that as a piece of what this is really about, and that is communication. It's human connection. Speech is a part of that. Human beings are meant to be together. We like to be together. We want to be together. We seek to be together. And how do we do that? We communicate with one another in a lot of different ways. And speech is probably the most common of all of those. It's certainly the one that we use the most as we are beginning the interactions and the development of the relationships. So speech is something that we wanted to do together. We knew, my wife's name is Paula, we knew that speaking was a very important thing for interrelationships to develop. He was a speech pathologist, which is a little bit different, has to do with speech ailments like stuttering and lisping and that sort of a thing. But I didn't do that. I did something different. I did this sort of a thing. And so we decided to work together. And it was in the beginning, of course, a lot of people, what's the name of that company? Speech Improve. What are they even talking about? Speech? How do you improve that? Nobody ever heard of that. So it took us a while to get that out. We had to announce who we are, what we do, and why it worked and so forth. So it took a while to get started. But when you think about it, you've got people to think about it, talking is something I do every day, something you do every day, and sometimes in a very, very, very critical way. Communication between and amongst people is very critical. So we knew that we could be helpful to what we had learned and what we knew was going to be helpful with people. So we just persisted, and it's the same thing today. It's not a whole lot different. A beat is not a whole lot different than it was 60 years ago.
Great, yeah. So, what kind of early moments really shaped your philosophy when it comes to speaking and leadership?
Well, I think there's one thing that stands out in my mind that happened very, very early in our career, maybe the first or second year. I saw a quote. I don't remember where I saw it, but boy, did it stick with me. It said, it's a quote from St. Francis of Assisi, as I recall. It said, there's no use walking anywhere to preach unless we preach as we walk. So to me, that said, I was a guy who was easy. Some people, talk a lot. I got along with people. It's comfortable for me. I never had a fear of speaking, all that sort of thing. I thought, can I help other people do this? And when I read that quote, I said, not can I? I must do this. It's my obligation as a human being to help other people be able to do this, not like me, not be like me, but to be able to use the skill, the potential that they had to help improve, retain their own life. And so that motivated me right from the very beginning, both Paul and I, and it motivates us today, all of our coaches today.
One thing you kind of speak about is the importance of speech and being able to communicate with one another. So, what's sort of the difference between just talking to people, just having a conversation with us, and having solid communication skills that can actually get you somewhere?
Well, they're basically no difference, except, except that there are skills involved. There are things that you can do. But more than that, if I go more basic than that a bit, if I go more than that, what's most basic is a person's mindset, how they think about not only speech, but how they think about relationships, how they think about what they want to accomplish, and how they think about what their capabilities are, and how they think about how to learn, all of those things. Your mindset is a very important part of being an effective speaker. The skills you can learn, what do I do with my hands? And did I say too much? And am I smiling too big? All of those things are skills that can be learned. And sometimes we learn them, just by growing up and in life. And sometimes you learn them by having a coach to help you with that.
Yeah, so mindset's actually something that we speak a lot about on this podcast. Obviously, we're speaking with a lot of entrepreneurs, founders, people who run business, and mindset's incredibly important with that. So, I want you to kind of elaborate a little bit more on mindset and why that's so important in effective communication.
Well, listen, mindset is everything. You do nothing in your life that doesn't come from your mindset. If you have the normal operating brain and mind, if you have abnormalities in your brain, we're talking about something different of it. So in this case, mindset is everything. What is that? Well, if you look about it, just take the word apart for a second. The word mind is in there. That's different than the brain. Now, an issue of argument. It has been since back to the time of Einstein, and maybe before that. The brain and mind, are they the same or are they different? Our perspective is that they are different. The brain, you can take it out and measure it and poke it and put it back and say whatever. We know a lot about the mind, the brain. We know a lot about it. If I push this, that lights up. We know a lot about the brain. We don't know hardly any. Who's ever seen the mind? Where is it? How does it work? But we say it all. It's all in your mind. Don't mind me. We use the word, we use the reference all the time. What is it? So the first thing we had to do is to figure out the difference between the brain and the mind, and what is that, and how do they act together? So the mind is a very different thing. This is where mindset is housed. The mind is like a triangle. At the top of the mind, there is what we call, and everybody knows, the conscious mind. This is the part that, the frontal cortex, where this is what you and I are using right now to understand each other and to talk. That's the sort of the top of this triangle. In the middle of this triangle is what's called the subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind is the housing for everything you ever learned. Everything. So, for example, here's a pen in my office. When I was a kid, I learned to pick up. You ever see a baby pick up a pen and go like this? Not anymore. I pick it up and I start writing with it. I don't have to think
Mhm.
about the pressure over here, the angle of that. I learned that. That's already in my mindset. How do you walk? How do you talk? All those things we don't think about, we just do them. They are all contained in the subconscious mind. The third part of this triangle is the bottom part. That's the unconscious mind. This is where things that happen when we dream. These are all the things that where your dog talks to you and uh, weird things. This is the unconscious mind. Mindset, that's your question. Mindset happens in the subconscious mind. Mindset, you are putting things through your conscious mind because they come from your subconscious. 85 to 90% of everything you do in a day comes from your subconscious. You don't have to
Wow.
think about it anymore.
Mhm.
So what happens in business is that whether you're selling or servicing, whatever you're doing, if you're not aware of it, what you are doing and saying will come from your mindset. And somewhere in your mindset, if you have a feeling about men with facial hair or women with purple hair, that's going to come out in the way that you talk in some way or another. Face expression, tone, words. So mindset is very important for you to understand how you think about things. Even think about the energy that you have. How do you use it? So mindset is a very intrinsic part of human communication and interaction.
Absolutely. And that makes a lot of sense. So, how can one start to use their conscious actions and habits to improve their subconscious so that they can start to have the positive mindset towards speech?
Well, the first thing, of course, is to know that there is that division, that things don't just come to you. Think them through. Your normal human brain now, we're thinking about a normal stature now, not a person who has some difficulty. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that. Too late. You already said it. How come? It came to you quickly. It did not go easily through your conscious mind. I just said it came. Okay. So sometimes when we're interacting with people, things come to us and we say things, maybe not think, we say things that afterwards, oh, I don't know why. I don't know where that even came. That's because your subconscious was ruling you at that moment, not your conscious. In your conscious mind, you knew you shouldn't say that, but your subconscious was so strong. So there are certain words, for example, most people wouldn't say in front of their mother. Okay? You say them in front of the guys, but not in front of your mother. It's your conscious working against your subconscious. So
Mm.
they balance each other out.
Gotcha. Okay. So, when with you seeing the world leaders, the entrepreneurs, the Fortune 500 executives that you've spoken with, what's something that you consistently see that leaders are misunderstanding about communication?
This is a very good question because over the 60 years have been and still are working with leaders of countries and leaders of companies throughout the world. In my case, for example, I won't go into a lot of specific clients, but I've had a lot of clients who are world leaders that coached in 2 presidential elections. So we have access to folks who are in significantly senior or responsible positions. There's really no difference in the way the process works. Your subconscious to your conscious. Sometimes your conscious wins, sometimes your subconscious wins. So the attentiveness, knowing that that can happen, is one of the first major things that makes a difference in your leadership or not. Being aware of the value of, the strength of your, in this case, speech and the way that you interact with other people. That's a very important part. And all the leaders that I've worked with around the world, that becomes one of the first things. How do I come across? I want to be this or that. They want to be certain things. All leaders, they want to be approachable. They want to be personable. They want to be authoritative. There are certain things that all leaders want. Those are the things that we coach people on. So first we figure out what those are, then we figure out how to help that person with that. That's
Okay.
called style coaching, by the way, a bit. It's something that, we don't just coach on, how do I say too much? We coach on what's called style coaching, the style of communication, not just the communication, but the style of communication, personable, diplomatic, whatever. And those kind of things determine what type of speech characteristics and techniques are going to be helpful.
Okay. And how do you sort of figure out, you know, what sort of communication style that fits a certain specific individual?
Well, the first thing you do, let's say, because I know you appeal a lot to, and you're looking at helping entrepreneurs and leaders. Let's talk about that. The first thing you do is you have to establish their level of awareness. So I'll say to them, for example, I'll say, what 2 words would you like other people to use to describe you when you're not there? What 2 words would you like to have come to their mind? And they think about it for a little bit and they'll say, well, I'd like to come across as, authoritative. What does that mean? Talk about that. What's the difference between authoritative and authoritarian? Simple thing. So
Mm,
talk about that. I also want to be approachable. How do you do that? So we get into the depth of understanding of their words that they would like to have other people describe them as being. How do you do that? And sometimes they'll say things that are really counter to their personality because they know that's what's required in leadership. Doesn't necessarily work because they know it's required. The text is all saying you can have that. Doesn't mean it's going to work for you. So you have to get the level of their awareness, acceptability of what are the characteristics of that particular style. I wrote a book a couple of years back on personal style, this issue. When a person chooses a word like, I want to be approachable, there are 16 different things that are part of being able to show that you are approachable. We measure which one works for you this way, that way, what's your context within which, what's your level of work. There's a lot of different things that go into it, but it all comes from the person themselves rather than from us saying, you need to do this or that.
Okay, so let's say, someone who says the words that they're choosing are pretty contradictory to their personality. Is it one of those things where it's like, okay, now we're going to coach you to not want those words, not want those descriptors? Or is it just more of a longer process to get that person to be that sort of communicator?
It's an interesting question. Longer is a good word there because some folks, their personality, their learning style is quick. They absorb it, they get it right away, and they can immediately implement it. And some folks, it takes a little bit longer. Doesn't take the lifetime. It may take 6 months instead of 1 month or 2 months. So it varies from person to person. But the basis of your question is whichever they choose, how do we get them there? And sometimes if they choose contradictory things, do we have to, well, what's contradictory? Sounded to me, but it's going to be you. And if you're absolutely decided that that's what you want, then my job as a coach is to help you get there. So this is why I said in the beginning, there has to be awareness. I have to sort of know yourself and know what you like and know what's appropriate for the setting that you're going into. Coaching somebody to be a football coach, for example, is different than coaching someone to be an executive at a banking institution. They're different. The environment is different. So you have to be able to assess that personality in that environment and then help them to either adjust or not adjust, their choice. You show them the impact. If you do it this way, it's going to be like that. Do it this way, and they can decide. And we have to coach them that way. It's not up to us. We do not coach them according to the book I wrote or any other book. We coach them according to what they decided in their life is going to be most helpful to them in their industry.
Amazing. So you bring up coaching a lot and you equated it to football coaches or basketball. And one of the things that, you know, kind of comes to mind is, you have the coaching, you have that training aspect when it comes to sports. How important is continuous practice in your speech? And the reason I ask this is because back in college, I used to do a lot of public speaking. I used to get on stages, I used to talk in front of large crowds. And the videos that I watch, and just from what I remember, I used to speak way better than I do now. And I sort of got out of practice and I've found myself not being able to come up with the words or the sentence structures or the flow that I would have had previously. And I found I've been out of practice. So talk to us about how important that practice is along with everything else.
Well, why? What you did it one time? Why aren't you able to do it now? You're saying simply because you don't do it very often?
Pretty much. Yeah.
No, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. You used a term that I think you're misunderstanding, and a lot of people do. When you were in your good days, you did a lot of public speaking and on stage level. Hold it, time out. What did you do? Did public speaking? A bit. There's no such thing as public speaking.
Okay.
Every time you talk, it's public. It's you taking your thoughts out and making them public to someone else. I know what you mean
Interesting.
by public speak. I get
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Get that. We get that. But this is one of the stumbling blocks that people have. That when I get on stage or have someplace else, I have to be this. You do that. No, you be who you are.
Mm.
If you're comfortable in one setting, why not comfortable? What is the difference? Now, this is where our industry comes in. We
Hmm.
assess where are your strengths, where's your strength, and where does that work for you, and where it doesn't, where do you want it to work? So we have to figure out how to transition the things that you're already comfortable with, good at, the things that need to be applied in the new industry or wherever you're working. So if that requires new things, we teach you new things. If it's old things, you got to move them over, we teach you how to move them over. So there's no such thing as public speaking. I heard another book on the fear of speaking. My goodness. Just the thought of fear, public speaking, that makes people, there's no such thing. It's all public. Think of yourself as being a person who interacts all the time with other humans.
Mm.
The settings, the context, the purpose, all of that changes. But that's what you learn. When you learn to play basketball, you know that it takes a ball and you're going to put the ball in the basket and you know all of that. But you got to learn how to handle the ball, the ankle, you got to learn. It's the same thing with human communication. You may be good at it in some places. Let's move those things over. If you're not good at it, you want to move over, teach you some things how to get over there. Public speaking, I want to say, is the first thing. Okay, so now let's talk about practice. How did you learn how to walk? Practice. How did I learn how to hold that pen? Practice. Absolutely. Over time, I don't even think about walking out. I just walk. Okay. Same thing with speaking. This is why it's so important when uh, not only parents, but folks in it, let's move it to the adulthood. When you take on somebody in your industry, you bring on newbies, new hires. First, of course, you got to teach them the content of what they're selling and what they're doing, but you also have to help them understand how to talk about it, how to sell it if that's what they do, how to explain it, how to teach it. That's a different thing. How to persuade. That's a different thing. So there's a difference between telling, teaching, training. All of that has to be assessed if you're going to develop a person who really is comfortable and effective at speaking. So practice is part of it. It just depends on how you do it. Practice is very important.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. I think with anything, with any skill, speech really is a skill when you come down to it. It's not just speaking whatever you think. So, you know, what really makes someone a great speaker?
Are they effective at what they do? What's the intent? My purpose of doing this presentation is to. Okay, did you do it? Did you get it? Okay, you're a good speaker.
Okay.
There's nothing magical about, for example, you should never say in a speech. No, that's not true. This is a simple thing. It is found in every language. In the Middle East, for example, my clients in the Middle East, I had to learn this. They were speaking, and every now and then they'd say, they're speaking English. Rather than they'd say, Yanni, Yanni, Yanni. You know what that means, don't you? You use that. Okay. Yanni is the version from the Mideast of our thinking. So you don't just eliminate those things; they're part of you. They're part of how you. Now, if you use them too much, or in some way they seem to distract from the message you're giving, yes, that's what a coach does. It sees the coach sees that, helps you get rid of it, or put it in there if you need that. So that's the job of a coach, to help you identify what are the things that you're really good at, and what are the things that get in the way. That's what a coach does.
You bring up a really good point because one of the best speakers that I've experienced my entire life was Barack Obama. And whether you like him or hate him, he was a great speaker. And one of the key things that people remember about Barack Obama is his, his ums and uhs. That's something that's very ingrained in my head about him as a speaker.
Yeah.
So, you can still be a very effective speaker with all of those ums and ahs. And I think that's a really important thing. I think a lot of people focus on, okay, I need to improve my speech. First things first, I'm going to take out all those filler words.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Not necessarily necessary. Now, here's how you judge. Does it get in the way of what I'm trying to communicate? Now, how do you judge that? Well, obviously the words, some words are triggers, and no matter what you say, no matter how you say them, some words are triggered other people. So you look at the language, you look at the everything like facial expression. If I say a nice thing, like I say, it's a lovely day today. But I do this, but if I say it's a lovely day today, all of a sudden the meaning got different. So
Hmm.
there's a combination of things we do, don't do. You cannot not communicate. So everything you do or say has an impact. Barack Obama had, we did a lot of analysis with every coach, every president that comes along, major candidates. We do an assessment of every one of them. He's a guy, obviously, that did very well. He was very successful. And then the other criticism he got was his pauses were too long. Did he forget what he's saying? What's he doing? Is he making it up? He's trying to change it on the spot. He used pausing very well. Oftentimes, speakers are very, I don't just not just saying that. Good. Don't say anything. Pause. Give your listener a chance to absorb what you just said.
Hmm.
The brain processes information 5 to 600 words per minute. I'm talking to you right now at about 185 words per minute, maybe less. So your brain is working much faster than I can. So what do I want to do? Speak as fast as your brain? No, no. I have to be able to say things that I know will stimulate your brain in the direction I want it to go, give you time, pause, give you time to absorb it and come back in. So there's a lot involved in getting your message across and being an effective speaker. Barack Obama was very good at that. You're correct.
Yeah. And on your note about pauses, I think one thing that pauses do really well is, like you said, it gives time to process and everything like that, but it also adds a sort of gravitas. It adds a deeper emotional feeling. You give someone a time to really think about what you're talking about, and it just gives you I don't know, smarter, you just sound smarter with the pauses rather than likes or ums.
Well, you said the key word. You give your listener something. You give them the gift of thought time, silence. And I'm telling you, that's like 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Here's a 3 second pause that could feel long. Here's a 1 second pause. Okay, it's gone already. When you can judge as a speaker the depth, the intensity, the intention of your speech, the capacity of your listeners, and all the other environmental things, you can assess what will it take to absorb, to really understand this word, this phrase, this word, this title of this program. What will it take? Given the noise, the level, the time of day, what their knowledge is, I think I should put maybe a 2 second or 3 second pause there. That's how you determine. And if you consciously say, look, this is not about me. I already know the content. How do
Mm,
I get them to know it, to accept it, to buy it if you're selling? Right. It's not about me. What can I do to give them the ability to agree with me? That's when you begin to judge, pausing, the expression, the language, the gestures, all of that. And that's the way we teach for 61 years. So I think we're doing things basically right. We wouldn't be around it.
it's worked for that long. There's probably something that's going good.
I think it's working.
So,
Out of our office, we've written 13 books, and I've written 9 of them. But we want to share this with everybody. It's not just something that we do because our business. We do a lot of pro bono work, and the whole idea is to help people communicate better. When 9/11, just let me the last thing I'll tell you. At 9/11 happened, it was disastrous worldwide. 9/11, I started, and one of my first attempts at that time was to work in the Mideast. People, what are you going over there for? They killed our people there. What? Here's why I started going over. I took a lot of criticism. I had to be cleared by the FBI, all this kind of stuff. Why did I go there? And why do I still go there? Why do we still have clients there? Why? Because at that time, this was the way we communicated with one another. Okay. My intention was to take this and make it this.
mm,
And that happens through communication, through
absolutely.
personal interaction, showing that we're all human beings and we have differences and things, but we can still talk about them. Anyway, I don't want to get into that too much.
I mean, it brings up a really great topic, in my opinion, because right now is a very divisive time of just the political discourse, everything around us. It does feel, I was really young in 2001, but it does feel very post 9/11 esque, in the sense that there's a lot of discourse about these guys are the enemies and we're the good guys and this and that. So you bring up a really good point, and I think that's something that a lot of people need to hear, is that communication amongst each other is going to help you learn a lot about this other.
And if we go back to our first point of conversation, mindset, this has a mindset. This has a mindset. So when you get to the idea of the mindset and how did that get there? Why? But some cases, obviously, it goes back thousands of years where things have been like this with each other. If somehow you can find that the person that you're literally fighting with or disagreeing with is human being, has toothaches,
Mm,
has children who cry,
hmm.
they're human beings. Oh, I don't care what color you are, where you come from. This is a human being. We
Absolutely.
populate this planet together. We should be able to, we are able to, not should, we are able to communicate with one another. And finding that way and imbuing others with that is what our company is all about. That's what we do. I think that's why we've been around for so long, because that's the basis of the training that we do.
Absolutely. And one thing that you mentioned, like being around for so long and providing all of this value, companies that stay for this long, it's because they did something correct. It's because they're doing something that provides all of this value. So let's talk about that. For founders specifically, why is it so important to be able to provide that value and not just go for the money?
Well, first of all, you have to have the mindset for that. I keep going back to that because that's human. That's the basis of human behavior. What's your mindset? Money's not a bad thing. Going for the money is not a bad thing. Having, these humanitarian things, not a bad thing. How do you get those things to work together with you? That's a whole other issue. And that issue depends a lot on the business that you're in, the products that you're making, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So as a leader in an organization like that, it's up to you to be able to set the tone, to set the mood, to set the mindset, create the mindset that your company is going to need to share whatever it is that you share. I don't care if it's nuts and bolts. It could be, it could be wristwatch. Doesn't matter. Whatever it is, what service do you bring to human beings by creating that product? Could be pleasurable, could be pain resistant, whatever it is. Your mindset as the leader has got to be, I'm in this because. And if money is the only issue, you'll make it for a little while and then you're going to fade away. But to stay around as long as we have, you have to adjust. You have to be in agreement with yourself and everybody who joins your team. We are in it to help people. And if your product doesn't help people in some way, it's going to be a challenge for you. I can teach you to sell it. I don't know if ethically I want to do that. If you're not helping people, I don't know if I want to
Mm,
teach you how to do that. But mindset is very important. And as the leader of the organization, you need to have that mindset of we're here, not about us. We're here to do what we can for other people. When that happens, people come to you, they find you. And if you got something good to give them, they'll buy it, they'll pay for it.
yeah. And your reputation is going to get better. You're going to be known as the go-to person the more people you help. It's all about, being able to provide value for as many people as possible. The more people that you provide that value for, the more people that are going to come to you.
It
So,
happens. It
yeah.
happens. Yeah.
I want to speak about something that we speak about a lot on this podcast, and that's the future with tools like AI. Obviously, the way that we communicate is going to change a lot with the introduction of these AI tools. So, from your perspective, how do you see AI really impacting communication, training, and this leadership development?
The, a question that we face every day these days with AI. However, let's go back a little bit.
Okay.
When we started in 1964 and up through many years, we were on reel-to-reel recorders and all sorts. Then along came this thing called video. What the heck's that? You take a picture. So now we don't have to be there. We can take a picture. We thought that would put us out of business. No, wait a minute. It's a tool. How do we use this tool in the work that we do? So we had to make some changes. Then along came virtual reality was the next thing, I guess. What? Virtual reality? So we learn how to practice as a coach, learn how to use virtual reality with people. Then the computer came along. We didn't do anything, but then all of a sudden, the computer. Then Zoom. Now we can't even be together with people. So there have been times along the 60 years that we've had to adjust to whatever the new technology is that came along. And because we knew, what we had to share and that had the mindset we're going to use this tool, we had to figure out ways to do it. AI is no different. No different in my view. Now, it's different in its technical capabilities, of course. Video was incredibly different. You could see the picture of people, send them
Hmm.
a pic. Wow, that was really impactful. AI, same thing. You have to learn how to integrate it into your business. For example, with us, we don't think that anything is ever going to replace the power of one-to-one, person-to-person kind of communication. For example, you can't, AI is not going to get you a haircut. You're never going to, we're always going to need barbers. So there's
Hmm.
certain things like this one. We believe that we are most effective when we can face to face. Now, when you can't, like you and I right now, we're not actually face to face, we're camera to camera, but we have figured it out. Society has figured it out. This is what's going to happen with AI. Currently, our materials, for example, our catalog, which is 15 pages long, we no longer have to write, we just dictate it in, boom, it's done in a matter of a couple of minutes. Sometimes even letters, which are only announcements that are personal connection. AI, boom, it's got it in a matter of 60 seconds. And so we realize what AI is. It's nothing to be afraid of. It's something that you have to learn how to use in your industry, no matter what your industry is. And ours is one that would seem to be really threatened because it will replace them. It won't replace you no matter what your industry is. If you learn how to use it, it will be good for you. And that's the phase we're in right now, figuring out how to use it.
Absolutely. That's something that I bring up a lot is that AI is not meant to replace us. And in the beginning, right now, everyone's trying to make it that way. We're trying to do everything with AI. And I think eventually we're going to find that that's not really how it should be used. It should be used as a tool in the toolbox, just something to sharpen the knife.
Of course,
However, there is this sort of over reliance that can happen with AI. And you see that in how every single email sounds the same now. You see that in every single college essay sounds the same now.
yeah, yeah.
So, how can we really how can we make sure that we're not using AI to just enhance and use everything? How can we make sure AI is not being used in a way that is going to weaken our communication skills?
Every industry has to ask themselves that question. We all are, all society. But industry, let's talk about business. In every industry, you got to answer that question. So in our industry, for example, when video came along, we had to learn this with video. You just get on the camera and show yourself, but we had to figure out what angle and lighting and how close do you get. We had to teach people about monster hands, and there's a lot of things we had to do. We had to figure it out. Everything, the setting, the background, all of that, we had to figure it out. Same thing is happening with AI. You have to learn, how does it suit? How does it fit? How does it build? How does it support? How does it explain your business, your service, your understanding of your client's service? Not how does it make life easier for me? How does it help me make the client's life easier, safer? So when you figure that out, it becomes one of the best tools that you have. And so that's what we're all working on that right now, AI, because it's such a dramatic difference in the communication world. This is the work that I'm in. I'm in the communication business. It's everywhere, not just us. It's in
Mm,
television, it's in movies now, it's everywhere. How are we learning to live with it? We will learn to live with it. I know we will. Everywhere will.
absolutely. How are you currently using AI tools within your business?
We use it, as I was mentioning, we use it to in our written descriptions. For example, when we have we never use this word contract, but when we make what we call a confirmation agreement with a client, we'll have meetings like this, and we'll talk it over. What are we going to do? How do you want to work it? Blah, blah, blah. So then we have to write it up and send it to the client. And we want it to be what we had talked about in our conversation. But we may have been talking for 2 or 3 hours, or maybe had 2 or 3 visits with the location and the number of people and so forth. How do you do that? We now dictate it into AI, and AI puts it in wording. If that wording sounds like what we understood it to be, sometimes it's better than I can write it. Even AI is pretty good language.
Mhm.
But we look for things like, you know, spellings or pronouns, use of pronouns, certain characters and characteristics that come up in spelling and in sentence structuring. If once we figure that out, no problem. It's easy. It helps us. And what does it help us do? It helps us save time.
Mm,
Every contract, every confirmation we write is different. There is no boilerplate in our work, because every time we work with a human being, whatever part of the world they're in, or whatever the level of work, it's all different. So we have to create it every single time, but that's okay. But there are some things that are the same. So we have a boilerplate piece of the speech improvement company started in 1964. Okay. So now we no longer have to write that out. It was taken and put it into AI, and it has a sort of a unique sound to it. We don't want it to sound like AI, but we use it in things like confirmation agreements. Sometimes we use it in marketing work that we do, but we're very, very careful about it not being impersonal. That's a really
absolutely.
important thing to us.
And you bring the impersonal thing that you mentioned is really important. I think things like contracts and or agreements or whatever, like that kind of stuff, it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter if it sounds personal or, but in the face-to-face communication or any sorts of emails that you may be having with an individual, in those cases, it's really important to be personalized.
Absolutely. In fact, we have 18 coaches in the organization. We ask all of our coaches not to simply write responses in AI. And there is a member of our staff whose job it is to make sure that everybody, when we send things to LinkedIn or Facebook or wherever we send them, or to clients, that it doesn't sound like AI. His job is to take a look at these things. If we're going to post something, we write it out and bring our intelligence to the thing, and then we send it to, his name is Jeff. We send it to Jeff. Jeff takes a look at it. puts it through AI, it sends it back. Does this sound personal? So we are very careful to curate the language, the approach that AI is telling us is a good approach, and make it sound as personal, as intimate, as well known as we need it to be in our work.
Absolutely. I come from a sales background, and, sales, in my opinion, is going to be the very, very last thing that AI can take over because of how important that human connection is in every sales interaction. However, one thing that has always driven me crazy when it comes to sales and just being a salesperson is how much time it takes for manual follow up,
Oh, yeah.
lead qualification, outbound emails. Like, there's so much that AI can actually take care of now in that sense. So, have you guys implemented anything like that into your sales processes?
Yes, the answer is yes. You asked me an inductive question, by the way. You had some lead up, and then you asked me the question. I gave you a deductive answer. I just said yes. That's the answer to your question. Okay? We're done. We're not really done because you asked me a lot of parts about that. So the sensitivity that AI has is that's a good one. If the client asks us or needs something else from us to be explained, that's an inductive process. We have to go through some detail with that. We give that to AI and say, maybe AI will come back and say, here's the answer. They will give us a deductive answer. That's not what the client asked for. So knowing the difference between the brain works inductively or deductively, knowing that difference, AI doesn't know that. AI gives you the answer. The client doesn't want just the answer. They ask, now, if they just come out and said, is AI better? Yes. No. That's what you asked me. But when you ask me an inductive question, this is why human beings make a difference here. I realize how your brain was working as you asked me that. If I give you just a simple answer, it doesn't work. So this is one way we use AI. We
Mm,
find out when a client asks us a question, if it's an inductive or a deductive question. And despite whatever AI says is the appropriate answer, the organization of the brain that gave me that question tells me the organization to give it back should be the same. That's a human connection. That's not an AI connection.
that's a great perspective to share. I didn't really even think about it like that, but that you're absolutely correct.
Well, the
So,
normal brain, as we talked about with speed, has patterns of behavior. But every human being who has a normal brain on the planet, every human being has the capacity to be either inductive or deductive. This is the way the brain works. So when you can figure out how a person is communicating with you, and you can communicate back in the same way, then the two of you are making a connection. It's easier to make a connection. Let's put it that way.
mm,
But if you connect with me this way and I give it to you that way, it's okay, but we're not really connected. So this is something that we are very strong with our clients, making the how do you tell the difference? How do you know the difference? What are you? What's okay? What's right? What's wrong? What's effective? What's ineffective? This is a very important part of why we're around for 60 years. We took that approach to it rather than just where do I put my hands and I say I'm too much. A little different approach.
absolutely. Do you think AI will ever be able to catch that?
I think it will. However, then is going to be the difference. This is where the human difference comes in. AI can figure that out. It should be able, and it will be able to figure that. Eventually, it will be able to figure that out. Then comes the added aspect of humanity, which is the choice of language, the sense of what's the emotional impact that facial expression makes, the sense of humor, the ability to do storytelling in a human way. Humor and storytelling are two things that AI has not figured out yet. It can give it to you, but it comes across as fake. It doesn't sound personal. It doesn't sound like I know you and I give it to you how you like it. So AI has not figured that out yet, and I think we're gonna keep that advantage on AI. I don't think it's ever gonna do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think with that, there's every new innovation, every new technological innovation that comes out, we find a way to still overcome it in sense of still be more powerful, still use our skills in maybe different ways. But with this AI being introduced, where do you think in the next 10 years when AI gets really human like, where do you think humans will really be able to outshine that AI and still be above that?
Well, hopefully, what happened with less dramatic but very real example we face today nuclear energy, atomic bombs, let's be practical, nuclear weapons. This is something that was created by humanity. Now, who controls it? Is it humans that control it? Or does the fact that it is an explosive thing, does it control the way humans behave? What can AI do about that? Now, this is where my fear is that when we take creations of humanity, such as the real one is nuclear weapons, can AI impact that? Well, it can in some ways, but there's always some human finger that has to go on that red button. That's the fear that I have, that the human beings will give over the decision making power to AI. AI knows all the elements, they figure all the things. So let's no. No, they don't figure, AI does not figure the humanity of the result of that interaction. To take nuclear weapons. It can decide whether to do it or not. It's going to be effective or not. Sure, which button? That's not that's not what we're looking at as humans on this planet. We don't want to destroy ourselves or the planet. We've already done enough of that. AI perhaps can help us prevent some of that. But my concern is that AI will, and I think people would like it to be able to make those decisions for us. We don't want to do that.
That's great. I think that's a great place to stop this conversation about AI. One of the things I really want to speak about is, what do you really think is the most important thing for a founder to be able to do to improve their communication skills?
Well, you have to understand if you're a founder, you have to understand what that means. It doesn't mean that you just figured out how to put this thing together and you got to support it and pay money. It's more than that. Founding something, starting something, is something that you do because you're committed to it. You feel it's a good idea. The world would be better if. Okay, so you do something about it. You create it. All right. Now it's your job to figure out how to implement all of that. Typically, you can't do it on your own. You got to get other people to help you with it. You got to get other investors to invest, pay money for it, and all of that. That's the role of the founder. This is where a founder's mindset comes in. Why are you doing it? You're doing it for money. You're doing it for progress. You're doing it for advancement. You're doing it for human good. You're doing it for the commercial benefit. What are you doing? A founder has to know all of that and ferret it out and understand, why am I here? Why do I do this? What am I bringing to humanity? Now, I realize a bit that I'm getting sort of ethereal with all this humanity talk. But to me, that's where, that's why we are able to talk with one another. We have an agreement that we are here, you and I are talking about this because we're hoping to enlighten other human beings and they will then be able to impact other people in a good way. That's why we do it. So if you're a founder, you have to have that in your heart, in your mind, and in your energies, in your efforts. Why am I doing this? How can I make life better? Not my life only, but if I'm making the life of others better, it will make my life better. How do I do that? And that's what a founder, I think, needs to think about. A founder is either a manager or a leader, two different things. Managers say and do the things that are required to keep you in business. A parts manager in a car dealership, the office manager gets the lights on, and so forth. But a leader is someone who says and does things that other people want to follow. They have the ability that managers sometimes have, but that's not their job. But a leader, companies, when they hire a CEO, they have a manager for CEO. Or, which kind of a
Mhm.
leader are you getting? So founder has to realize that he or she has to be both for a while. And at some point, this one's going to be more important than that. So you have to be able to do both. You cannot be just a good manager of things and stuff. You can just have great ideas. And no, you have to be able to do both. If you're a founder, you're going to make it work. You've got to be able to be both a manager and a leader. And that starts in your mindset.
Absolutely. Well, Dennis, this has been incredible so far. I have had a great time speaking with you. Your work has obviously shaped, generations of leaders, and it's an honor to share your expertise with my audience. So, for anyone who does want to learn more about your work or train with you with the Speech Improvement Company, where can they find you?
Oh, it's easy. Speechimprovement.com. Speechimprovement.com. We're there. Websites, videos. We got a lot of free things. We'll give it away. Please visit us there if you want to learn more about us or about this or about how you can use this to impact your business or whatever. Speechimprovement.com. It's the easiest thing.
Amazing. Great. Well, thank you all for tuning into the Chōten Show. If this conversation has helped you at all, if you enjoyed it, share it with the founder or leader who needs to hear it. And if you have anyone that you would like to jump on the podcast, or if there's any topics you'd like us to speak about, please drop them down on the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe. Dr. Dennis Becker, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you. Hope it was helpful.
Right.